Hey everybody, this is Chris Russo. Thanks for joining us here for video number 2 in our 5-part series, Understanding Medicare at 65. If you happen to miss the last video, we talked about getting signed up for Medicare, how to go about it, the different ways you can do it, and whether you even need to do it if you're in a situation like you're still working and you're covered by insurance at work. So in this video, we're going to be diving deeper into the main parts of Medicare and especially Medicare Part A and B. So we're going to start off this video by looking at this chart. This is an overall big picture of Medicare, and I'm going to be coming back to this chart quite a few times throughout the rest of the series kind of to tie everything together. So looking at this overall big picture of Medicare, you can see of all the different parts of Medicare, the only parts that are provided directly by the federal government are Part A and Part B. So everything else you see on this diagram, whether it's the standalone Part D prescription plans, Medigap plans, Part C, Medicare Advantage plans, all the other different parts of Medicare are provided directly by insurance companies. So we're going to be getting into those pieces in later videos, but in this video we're going to restrict our discussion to Medicare Part A and Part B. So Medicare Part A and Part B together are what's known as Original Medicare. If you have your Medicare card already, you can see on there Part A is your hospital insurance, Part B is your medical insurance, and those two together are being provided to you by the government. Medicare Part A is your hospital insurance. So Medicare Part A only ever applies once you're admitted as an inpatient. If you're never hospitalized, you basically never use Part A. Technically, hospice, which is end-of-life care, does fall under Part A, but for our discussion today, we're going to limit it to inpatient coverage. About 99% of folks that are on Medicare don't pay a premium for Part A. They receive what's known as premium-free Part A. So as long as you have 10 years or 40 quarters of qualified work history, then you don't owe a premium for Part A. So don't know if you've ever really paid attention to your work stub or your paycheck where you've seen FICA on there. Generally, when they're taking out FICA, they're taking out a little bit out of your paycheck that applies towards Social Security, and it applies toward Medicare. So as long as you have those 10 years of qualified work history, you're not going to pay a premium, a monthly premium, when you're on Medicare Part A. If you don't have that 10 years of work history in some cases, you can receive premium-free Part A based on a spouse's work record. So just know that if you get a notice for Medicare Part A, that's something that you should look into if you can possibly qualify through a spouse's work history. But even though most of you are not going to have to pay a monthly premium for Part A, there are cost-sharing expenses that do come into play if you would ever need to be admitted to the hospital. So the main one is what's known as the Part A deductible. Typically goes up a little bit every year. In 2020, it's $1,408. So that means if you would ever be admitted to the hospital with just Medicare Part A and Part B without any supplemental insurance, you'd owe that first $1,408. After that, Medicare will cover the rest of your costs for a hospital stay after that point. So that's basically what a deductible is, something that you pay before your insurance, and in this discussion, Medicare is your insurance, before your insurance starts to pay their part. If your hospital stay would ever happen to extend past what's known as a 60-day benefit period, there are some per day copays that you would owe. And if you happen to be released from the hospital but get readmitted to it and you still fall under that same 60-day benefit period, you would not have to re-meet that Part A deductible. So for example, if you are admitted to the hospital with pneumonia, you're in there for 4 or 5 days, you get released, but then you're not getting better at home and you need to be readmitted to the hospital. As long as it's still within that 60-day benefit period, you do not have to pay that deductible, that Part A deductible again. The other major part that falls under Part A is what's known as a skilled nursing facility. Another name for it is rehab or your post-hospital stay. So Medicare will cover your first 20 days in a skilled nursing facility as long as you meet the criteria of being hospitalized for at least 3 days first. And if you're not hospitalized for 3 days, then Medicare actually doesn't cover you at all for a skilled nursing facility. But as long as you're admitted for 3 days, Medicare pays for your first 20 days in a skilled nursing facility, and days 21 through 100, there would be a per day copay per day that you can see in the slide here. Medicare Part B is your medical insurance. It's going to apply toward anything that's medically necessary that's either medical or physician related. It's going to be things like doctor's visits, tests like blood work or CAT scans, treatments like chemo, outpatient procedures, medical equipment. It's really most of what you're going to use Medicare for. Something to keep in mind too is Part B services and expenses can even apply during a hospital stay. So a lot of times when you're hospitalized, a lot of the services are going to fall under Part A, but a lot of the doctor services and medical services, things like that, will fall under Part B. So even during a hospital stay, many times you can have Part A and Part B cost shares that you have to be responsible for. Unfortunately, unlike Medicare Part A, most of you will pay a premium for Medicare Part B every month. The default premium this year in 2020 is $144.60 per month. For those of you whose income might be over certain amounts, you will pay more for Medicare Part B. If you're interested in learning more about that, I've put a link below the video to see if you might fall under that situation, or if you do, how much you should expect to pay for Medicare Part B this year. And for most of you, or for many of you that are drawing Social Security income, the Medicare Part B premium will be taken directly out of your Social Security check. If you're not drawing Social Security, then you're going to get a bill every 3 months for the Medicare Part B premium that you owe. However, a lot of times that first bill might be more than 3 months. It might be for 4 months or 5 months. And the reason for that is just to get you on the same billing cycle as everybody else. So after that first larger bill, then you're going to be billed every 3 months like everybody else that's not drawing Social Security. As far as your cost shares under Medicare Part B, just like Part A, you do have a deductible to meet there, except the Part B deductible is much smaller. In 2020, your Medicare Part B deductible is $198. And unlike the Part A deductible, which applies toward a 60-day benefit period, the Part B deductible is for a calendar year. So no matter where during the year you happen to get on Medicare, the deductible lasts for the rest of the year, and it'll start over the next January 1st. So whether you've been on Medicare since February 1st of that year, or whether you start Medicare December 1st, that Part B deductible just starts over January 1st of the following year. Once you meet the $198 Part B deductible, then Medicare Part B behaves like an 80-20 plan, and that means that for anything Part B that you need, after that deductible is met, Medicare is going to cover 80% of your costs, and you still owe 20% of your cost shares. That 20% is what's known as the Part B coinsurance, and the biggest thing that you need to be aware of with Medicare Part A and B as far as what you're liable for is that Part B coinsurance, because that Part B coinsurance is unlimited. There's no limit to how much you're responsible for. So if you happen to be hospitalized and need treatment and follow-up visits, therapy, things like that, let's say your Part B bill is $250,000. Well, Medicare is going to cover 80%, but you're still going to be responsible for 20% in that example. It's going to be $50,000 using that example. So just be aware of that's typically your biggest liability under original Medicare, and generally the biggest reason that you need to pick up some type of supplemental insurance. And that'll do it for our discussion here in video 2 of our 5-part series, Understanding Medicare at 65. If you have any questions or comments about anything that we've gone over in this video, or even in the first one in the series, go ahead and leave those underneath the video, and I'll get to those just as soon as I can. If you found this video helpful, or anything helpful in this series so far, go ahead and hit that like button or that subscribe button. It helps me grow my channel, and it'll help me get you notified when I release any videos later in this series or any Medicare related videos in the future. So thanks again for joining us, and stay tuned for video number 3, where we'll start talking about supplemental insurances, Medigap plans in particular. Take care for now.